grab your coffee, and prepare to ask your burning questions to our recruitment team. Max Spanier, President of Sloane Staffing, and Wes Leeser, VP of Demand Gen Search at Verseek. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, happy to have you both here. I'll give you all a proper introduction to our recruiter panel here. First, we have Max Spanier. Max is a former Marketo enterprise account executive who established Sloane Staffing when he realized that the biggest gap in marketing ops was finding the right talent to run systems. Sloane Staffing, a partnership between Max and his wife, has now been able to place over 400 candidates today. He's based in Jupiter, Florida, and if he's not recruiting MOPS talent, you can either find him on the golf course or at the local craft brewery. Welcome, Max.
Thanks so much, Amanda.
And our next recruiter is Wes Leeser. Wes started his career in marketing, think campaign strategy and sales enablement, and then did what most people do when they have no idea what they want to be when they grow up. He became a recruiter. Wes is the VP of Demand Gen and Marketing Search at Verseek. He's based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and is likely in more fantasy football leagues than the entire audience combined. Welcome, Wes.
Thanks for having me, Amanda.
All right. So for our attendees, please enter your questions into the comments panel on the right side of your screen, and we will get started asking some questions here.
Not everybody at once.
Yeah.
It's early. Hopefully everybody's got their coffee.
And just to kick it off too, if anybody wants to talk about starting a business with their significant other, that's something we could take offline another time as well.
That's great. Well, while everyone, grabs their coffee and gets their questions in order, I think I have a burning question myself that we could get started with. How does one stand out to recruiters or hiring managers? What's your best advice being recruiters yourselves?
You want to start, Max?
Yeah, I'll take it. Would love to hear your thoughts as well. But I think the biggest thing is decisiveness and understanding what it is that you want out of the next position. A lot of people come to me all the time and, they have Marketo experience, HubSpot experience. They're looking for a marketing operations role, but they don't really care what tools that they use, right? Or what that company that they're potentially going to start working for. So understanding, what ABM platforms that you want to work with, what MarTech platforms, what analytics platforms will help, partnering with a recruiting firm like us be able to find that best next opportunity for you.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off that, Max, I think the one thing that I notice, that a lot of our, hiring managers, a lot of our companies that are looking for is really somebody with an opinion, right? They're looking for, it's kind of an old, sales analogy, but, they want order makers, not just order takers, right? So it's somebody that, comes to the forefront, with an opinion on, hey, this is what we did previously. And, even though if I wasn't necessarily the person making the decisions at my previous company, I have an opinion on what we did and why or why not it worked, why it did or didn't work, right? And that's what a lot of people I think are looking for, especially if people are looking to take that next step. A lot of companies are looking for, hey, if they're looking for a director level individual, we'll take somebody who was a senior manager at their previous company. Maybe they haven't, been the person, but they've been a strong number two and they come in with opinion. So I think just having a formulated opinion going into an interview process on, what you would do, kind of what your best practices would be, is a really good way for a lot of people to kind of stand out.
Awesome. Yeah, good info to have.
Really caffeinated.
I think a lot of us are very decisive, very opinionated group with MOPS professionals. All right. Well, we do have questions filling in, so I'll get started with the first that was in line. How has it been filling MOPS roles in general? Are you getting lots of no's, etc.?
Wes, while you fix your mic, I'll take this one. And I think that was Jeff. Beers and birdies, gotta love that. Hope not a lot of birdies, a lot of pars and bogeys and doubles, but it's difficult. You know, Amanda mentioned I was a former Marketo rep, so I gear a lot of our search towards Marketo recruiting. It's hard. You know, I think the biggest thing that, you know, a lot of companies these days have a high expectation for this role. They want to fit so many pieces within one individual, depending on the size of organization. Like, you know, I see Alex Long's in here. She's somebody that we hired at one of our clients, Alpha Sense. Someone like that, you know, organization that has 4 or 5 marketing operations people, it becomes a lot easier when you're adding, you know, you're a piece of a puzzle versus, you know, a startup company, Series A, Series B, that's looking for a marketing operations person that's a jack of all trades. So I hate using the word depends, but it really depends on the opportunity. And, you know, a lot of no's, we are getting a lot of no's from a candidate side. We are getting a lot of no's from a company side because people want perfect fits. And, you know, unfortunately with recruiting, there is no such thing as perfect. And that's our job to kind of convey that to our customers and to the candidates that we partner with.
All right, welcome back, Wes.
Is my headset fixed? Is that better?
Yes.
All good.
Okay, sorry about that. Apologize for everybody. I didn't. I missed a lot of what Max said, so hopefully there's not too much redundancy. Apologies for the technical issues. I think one of my wireless earbuds were dead. So, what I think, you know, when it comes to filling a lot of the marketing operations positions, I mean, you know, here's the thing, right? Like everyone, when it comes to a lot of these marketing operations positions, the reason people either stay at their current company or move to a different company is because they don't necessarily feel supported or valued, right? And there's a lot of companies, you know, when we're dealing with our clients, I think the biggest thing that we always ask either, you know, primarily CEO, you know, when we're dealing with a lot of our clients is what they're looking at from do they see marketing as an investment or an expense, right? And so, you know, investing in, you know, marketing operations, marketing technology, you know, just because somebody does it doesn't necessarily mean they see the value in it, right? So, you know, just making sure that your companies really see the value in marketing ops and that they feel supported. So, I mean, from a candidate standpoint, do we hear a lot of no's? I think it just really depends upon what the situation, you know, that people are coming from. And then from a client standpoint, you know, I would say marketing operations positions are really the one role where a lot of our companies are finding, yeah, hey, if you have somebody who's really good, you know, if we do have an opening, awesome. Even if we don't, we would still love to talk to that person, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there as well.
Wes, we're still getting some feedback distortion on your end. Maybe you can switch to the laptop speaker.
Right. Sorry about that.
No worries. And I think Max got disconnected. It's early in the morning, I guess. But Wes, if you
got rid of
switch.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I got rid of the speakers altogether, so hopefully there's not too much feedback just coming directly from the laptop.
Yeah, right. Okay, sorry you got kicked out, Max.
I'm back.
You're back. Great. All right. We have a good question here. I've thought through this question a lot. Amy Goldfine has asked, is the homework assignment dead? I think they're helpful for assessing how a candidate thinks, assuming they are not an insane amount of work and you are not just looking for free work. But I know a lot of candidates are turned off by these requests during the hiring or interview process. So the question again is the homework assignment dead?
Wes, why don't you jump in first there?
Yeah, you know, I think the thing with the homework assignment, I really think it comes to how much time and energy is put into the assignment. What we've always tried to provide just direction for our clients on a homework assignment is, hey, this is something that shouldn't take somebody more than, a couple of hours, right? People are working, everybody's busy. If you do an assignment, it should be more of an overview to help drive the conversation around either people, process, tech, whatever the problem is, right? And really help just kind of control the conversation and control the narrative versus, hey, we need you to put together this in-depth 30, 60, 90-day plan, and what's your hiring strategy, and how are you going to okay, well, what if this happens, and we're going to put hypothetical scenarios in there, and that's just way too in depth. I think a lot of people are especially if you invest a lot of time into a project like that and then you don't get the position, it feels, kind of at a loss, and you did give away something for free. So, I would say completely doing away with, homework assignments or projects is going to be pretty difficult, because there are companies that are just like, nope, we want to make sure that, somebody coming into our organization, that we have just a technical way to vet them. But at the same time, I think, just making sure that your clients are aware that, there is pushback and you will lose some people because they don't want to do a homework assignment, and then just make sure that it's the effective use of everybody, the most effective use of everybody's time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think just to piggyback off what Wes said as well, it comes down to time. I've seen candidate or clients expect to, for like a head of demand gen type of role, expect the candidate to put together their plan and then present their plan about how they would go to market. I think for marketing operations, it's a little bit, easier to potentially have more of an in-depth conversation on specifics, right? So, Amy, if you're hiring an analytics role, talk to us about, how you've done full funnel optimization and reporting at the current software company that you're at today, where it's not like a ton of extra work. It's really just presenting on what you have today and then what you could, bring over to this new company that you're interviewing at.
Yeah. Right. And while Wes gets his mic adjusted, we'll move on to the next question here. What tips do you have for screening in MOPS expertise, somewhat related to that homework assignment?
This is a tough one. So I think it all, we advise our clients on really understanding, like, okay, what gap are they looking to fill, right? So I used the, Alpha Sense story a little bit ago, where, we've hired a handful of marketing operations people with Marketo experience, one with Tableau experience, one with, X type of experience, understanding the gaps that you have in your marketing technology stack and the people stack, and then interviewing around that, right? So if you need just a dedicated Marketo email person, interview around how do you set up campaigns? How do you, what's the if-then experience? How do you do integrations? What other tools have you integrated with? Was it with a team? Did you handle integrations? Did you partner with sales ops? So to be able to and it's situational because everybody has a different team in place. Some organizations have sales ops where sales ops handles integration. Some have MarTech where MarTech handles integration. So kind of looking internal to understand what do you have, what resource do you have, and what do you need this person to fill in, and then being able to interview around that.
And a question that I'm not the next one in line, but one that I think relates to it. What have you seen as the most in-demand platforms? Since you should be looking at the holes in your tech stack and then asking questions around that for the interview. What's the most in-demand platforms for expertise within a Marketo or MarTech stack? Not Marketo stack, MarTech stack.
I'll start. I'm a little biased. Obviously, I'm a ex Marketo, but I posted a video last week or 2 weeks ago about the current state of Marketo hiring, and there's 5,800 MCEs in the country, Marketo certified experts, and there's 9,000 open marketing operation jobs. So I see, depending on company size, more advanced companies are, Series C, Series D and above tend to go to a Marketo, a Pardot. We've seen a lot of Series A, Series B that are on HubSpot because it's it's less expensive, it's easier to use, etc. But what we've seen is that you're not able to expand on a lot of the capabilities with a platform like that.
Hopefully my audio is fixed. Please, good vibes only. Maybe not. Shoot. Okay. Well, hopefully, I think Max hit the nail on the head when it comes to, company size. That's the biggest thing, right? The one thing that I'll say is there's a saying in MarTech, you've probably all heard it, is that, there's so many companies and people ask me, what's the best, tech stack? If you had everything, and it's like, what's the best tech stack? And my answer to that question is always the one you have. Most people think that, technology is the, solver of all of the problems. But obviously we know that it's the people using the technology that are the ones that are solving the problem. So, it's, new CMO, new VP comes in, we're going to rip out one thing, we're going to put in another thing. And all this ends up doing is ends up kind of pushing the timeline back. Not to say that that's not necessarily the case as organizations kind of grow and evolve. It's important to have, the best tech stack, that will work for you. So smaller companies, tend to have, HubSpot, obviously, as a lot of people know, we're in the Midwest, active campaigns in Chicago. There's a lot of stuff here for that as well. Marketo, I would say, is very heavily, most companies are looking for Marketo. Eloqua from an enterprise, standpoint. So kind of the, those, maybe big four, maybe I missed one and I don't want to make anybody mad. So I'll stop talking.
Right. Kimmy posted a question. She did our keynote yesterday, and she did give some salary ranges yesterday in that keynote. Given the workload and breadth of expertise required for those roles, what trends are you seeing regarding MOPS role salaries?
Oh man, this is an interesting topic. Yeah, I'll let you start there, Wes.
So the biggest thing that I think that happened, call in the last 18 months is obviously salaries increased, across the board, on a lot of different, industries and functions and stuff like that. Marketing ops, and sales ops, rev ops, increased a ton, right? And I would look at that to say, I always remember thinking, 4 or 5 years ago when there was like a marketing operations manager, with 3 to 4 years of Marketo, and, they were making, 90 to 110, that was kind of like the big, marketing ops manager, 5 years of experience, 3 years of Marketo. They were kind of 90 to 110. That was like the universal. And I just remember thinking how much work that these people do. And, other people that are, developing the strategy and not handling a lot of the plumbing are making like exponentially more than the marketing ops people, right? And so I think it just really kind of right-sized the ship, right? So, from a salary standpoint, that's such a, it's such a difficult question to answer because it's based on industry, it's based on location, there's so many, different intricacies, but I would say, in general, 25 to 30% more now versus what somebody was making, 12 to 18 months ago. So the same position that we were filling at, let's call it 125 to 140,000, back in early 2020, I would say that same role is in the 170-ish range. If it was a 140 position previously, we actually just filled. So this is just a point of context. We just filled, call it senior manager / director, managing it. I think it was a 2-person team. It was a director level title, but the individual was a senior manager previously. I think it was I'd have to go double check, but I think it was like a 160, just over 160 plus bonus, right? So that was an East Coast client, that kind of stuff. So that's, again, I'm kind of talking at a high level, but hopefully that just, gives us some context.
Yeah. And so it's funny, we hired that same exact person, director of marketing operations, Marketo, Salesforce, Tableau. They weren't a people manager, but they were a senior manager that went into a director level, and it was 160K base. But we're seeing, so right around that, probably 150 to 175 on a director level. But company size is that's the one thing I wanted to stress with what Wes said. Company size matters, right? Because a lot, depending on how big of an organization you are, you're competing with the Amazons, the Googles, the Adobes for that same talent. And now the big thing with what Wes was saying 18 months ago, everything was geo recruiting specific. Now companies in the Bay Area, some of our clients are hiring people in Boston, and people in Boston, people in Boston are looking for folks out of the Bay Area. So location matters, but also the openness to find individuals with a variety of a background to fit the salary comp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, Max, from a location standpoint, what we found is a lot of Bay Area, again, I'm in the Midwest, right? So a lot of coastal Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Boston, New York, have started saying, oh wow, like Chicago, Minneapolis. I mean, Austin's kind of booming, Denver, Nashville, to a certain extent. So they're starting to kind of go in and saying, oh wow, we can get a really good person for 20% less than what we would need to pay them, if they were lived in the Bay Area. I mean, just cost of living, stuff like that. So that's also kind of increased. We get a lot of companies that are in the Midwest going like, wow, like there's just some of these salaries that we can't compete with. Or, this person got an offer from another company. It's like, well, okay, well, where's that company located? Oh, San Francisco. Oh, okay. Well, there's your answer. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Great context to have. Definitely. All right. The next one we have, I think it's a 3-part. Do you see companies improving at understanding what the MOPS role actually entails? And I think we answered that second part of the question, which platforms are the most in demand right now. But the third, what level roles are most common that you're seeing? And how often do you see a director plus roles with direct reports for this marketing ops territory?
So I'll take number one. I think I saw Amy, asked another question in regards to like financial stability, which I think kind of piggybacks off of what Evan asked on the first part. Understanding like it's on the candidate in an interview process to really dig into the hiring manager about what their expectations are for the role and what do they envision for this person. What value can they add to the organization, et cetera. So, we hired a director of marketing operations at a cybersecurity company out of Boston last year. And the hiring manager had no clue about marketing operations. She was a demand gen person, never was a tool person, never was a technologist, but knew she really needed to bring on a strong number 2 to run tech. So that's a situation where, she might not have understood, but how to run it, but she understood the value of it. So being able to like let go of some of that, that need or want to be able to find that individual is key there.
Yeah, just to kind of go back on, what positions do we find, most in demand? It's I don't want to say everybody. So here's the thing. If I look back to, I've been doing this for, almost, 9 years, which is crazy to think about. And when I started placing a lot of, directors of demand generation, so I'm going back, 8-9 years ago, demand it wasn't a searchable term in LinkedIn, right? Demand generation, not to say that I'm the, walk to school uphill both ways in the snow type of person, but, it was just a lot different. And so the best demand gen people came up through ops, right? It's because you knew all of the work that went into, building all of the functionality, the plumbing is what I call it, right? And so right now, I think what's happened is demand gen has become so big from a strategy standpoint. There's, campaigns and find our ICP and do this and do this. But I think what we're now missing is people coming up through ops, right? So we place a, VP of marketing, senior director, demand gen, whatever. most often the number one position is like, all right, cool, now I need an ops person, right? It's like, I need hands, and so they need somebody who has like the technical ability to actually build everything for them, because it's like, hey, they'll understand the strategic component, but the actual technical operation side is something that they don't have, right? And so depending upon, people in ops here, what your career path is, I think focusing on, kind of where you want to go and leveraging that, technical, in-depth technical experience to help, get you into more of a demand gen role or wherever you want to go in your career, right? There's definitely value there. So to answer the question, they need like blocking and tackling is what people are looking for. It's like, hey, we need somebody come in and just, build programs, build processes, blocking and tackling type stuff. That's a lot of, what we get from a demand standpoint.
Good to know. Yeah, Amy had a question, I think, on scrolling up here. Yeah, there have been some layoffs, especially in tech. If you're looking for a new role, how do you tactfully assess the health of a company so you can hopefully avoid a layoff scenario at your new role?
I just met with a CMO last week. I was at Sasser in San Francisco, and I just met with a CMO that's one of our clients previously and with their new company. And she asked to see the financials. She went under NDA. She asked to see financials. How's the company doing? How's the health of the business? I'm not saying everybody can do that, but again, in the interview process, really digging into the hiring manager, to the VP, to the CEO, and understanding how's the business doing and kind of gauging based on how they answer. Are they hiring? Look at the jobs that they have posted. Even reach out to other folks that are at the company, maybe second degree connections that you might have within an organization, and ask, hey, what do you think about this organization? Are they growing? Are they selling? If not, probably a red flag.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to piggyback on that, I mean, I would look at, across the company, what's the average tenure of an employee? How long have, if this is a net new position, how long has it taken somebody to build up their team? If it's a replacement, how long were they there? Why did they leave? Look at the sales team. I mean, honestly, like if the sales team, if the company's making money, typically the sales team is making money, and typically the salespeople don't leave, right?
Leave, yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I would say use kind of all of the, I don't want to say nonverbal, cues, but, just assess the employees, right? And that'll give you some really good context into, are people staying? Are people leaving? What's the overall health of the organization? Talk to talk to who's ever would be your boss, and, how long have you been with this company? Why did you choose this company over others? Assuming you had multiple offers, like, why did you take this company over other companies?
Right.
Like, why do you stay here? Right. I mean, all of those things, I posted a video a couple weeks ago about like, how do you assess the culture of an organization without specifically asking, well, tell me about your culture. It's like, well,
yeah, it's a great culture. We have a lot of fun, and
Right.
ping pong tables, and
yeah, it's like there's so many boilerplate, answers that somebody's going to give you that. I mean, because you ask somebody what their culture is, what are they going to say? Terrible? Like, no.
Right.
Like ask them like, how are decisions made here, right? Like, tell me about the last program that you ran that was successful, and how did you celebrate those wins? Tell me about the last, campaign that you ran that was not successful, and what happened there, right? And so it's really just assessing like how decisions are made and what people are doing, and that will kind of give you some insight into what the overall health of the organization is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just one last piece, I think, on the sales side, at looking at the salespeople within an organization, are they there more than 1 year before leaving? Because that's a big indicator, because no salesperson makes any money in 1 year, because it takes 6 months, especially in an enterprise sale, to build a pipeline. So if they're bouncing out in a year, they're not making money, probably, product market fit or there's a lot of things that could potentially go wrong there.
Yeah, that's a good indicator I've never thought of. Like, how are the sales reps doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, going back to Wes, you like mentioned a few questions that you could ask yourself when you're going through the interview process as a candidate. Any guidance on how to determine whether marketing is viewed as an expense or as a value add by a company's executive leadership team?
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing, like like everybody, everybody will tell you that they need marketing, right? When things are good. Okay. And we noticed that, when, COVID hit and, middle of March, it was like St. Patty's Day in Minnesota when everything like shut down. So March 17th and everything shut down until probably like June. I think everybody just kind of sat there and was like, okay, what's happening? They reallocated budgets, travel stopped, and next thing you know, it was like, oh wow, we're not actually losing money like we thought. We actually have other budget. Let's go try to gain market share. And so many companies invested in marketing, and I would say from like June, July of 2020 until, I don't know, 3 months ago, we were just crazy busy. Filling. I'm Max. Kind of the same thing. It was just business was incredible, right? Because companies were investing in money or in marketing. Excuse me, right? And so, now, when you look at some of the, somebody had mentioned kind of layoffs previously, a lot of the companies that are having layoffs are MarTech tools, right? And so it's looking at, hey, how does this company invest money when things are going well versus how do they invest money when things aren't going as well, right? Most, again, it kind of goes back to is the marketing an expense or an investment?
Yeah.
And it just takes time. So as far as specific questions, I think, again, how are decisions made? What are successes? What are failures? Hey, if somebody hasn't, if somebody's left the marketing organization, why do you feel that they didn't have a good experience here? Something like that. So just trying to from previous individuals.
And then just one other piece in terms of like investing, right? So a lot of hiring that's happening is Series A, B, C, D, E. And understanding like, okay, we just got a round. Do you need another round to fuel growth? If the answer is yes, that might be an issue. That's a red flag I would consider in a candidate standpoint. If the answer is no, then they're healthy to have an opportunity to leverage the internal resources to scale. So we've seen Wes was mentioning MarTech platforms that raised a Series C in end of 2021 and needed to raise another round to continue the growth. That round, money is not flowing as it was a year ago from VCs to SaaS businesses. So that's, really understand Series B. Okay, do you need a Series C, Series C? Do you need a D? And if they do, that might, be something to consider as you're going through a process with them.
Yeah, and there's one question. Sorry, Amanda, I don't want to steal your thunder here.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
There's a couple of really good ones. I want to get to one. I think Lori had one a while back, but Natalie Kramer just asked, can you share your thoughts on finding beginner marketing ops talent? It's so hard to find junior talent and wondering if you're seeing trends. It's an incredible question. I mean, because it's, Max, you can kind of attest to this. I always tell people as a recruiter, we're not in the business of creating people. Pretty sure that's still illegal in most states. But we're in the business of finding people. But how do you create, additional individuals that can kind of fill a need? And honestly, it's one of the things that we've actually found is take people that come up as BDRs, as salespeople. I mean, they understand kind of like the sales process. Maybe they're not these people aren't going to be your hunters, right? They're going to be more of a farmer and account management. They might be more of like a strategic relational type seller. And help them and kind of get them exposure into marketing because, they work with the marketing team, somebody that's, writing content or, kind of handling a little bit of like the sales enablement side, move them into a more of an ops role. And we've seen some really good successes, in that because they're working so closely, with those people anyways.
Yeah. And one other piece. So there's this company called Highway Education that's tackling that challenge head on, where they're actually training people that have no marketing or marketing operations experience and turning them into Marketo certified, Pardot certified, Salesforce certified individuals, they're not going to have real world like B2B SaaS marketing operations experience, but they're going to have 3 months, 4 months of training on specific tools that you might be able to leverage.
Yeah, and I think Lexi had a question about like how do you actually stand out when you have little experience within marketing ops for one of those entry level positions versus, you know, someone that has already a few years. Would you recommend that they take those courses and actually add that to their resume? How do they actually stand out?
It can't hurt. You know, I think at the end of the day, it's recruiting is sales. So a candidate that's in an interview process with a potential employer, you know, reaching out on LinkedIn, email follow-ups, like these things that you don't even really think, you know, matter so much, right? Like how was the communication after the fact? Like we're already, you know, we know we're looking for a more junior person, you know, they're going to have to, you know, not have every box checked. But like, what's the communication like? Could they do it? Do they want to do it? And show eagerness throughout the process as well. Like, I can do this. This is, you know, and relate experiences to how that, you know, from a previous role, how you can relate that to add value to this new organization.
Yeah, and I mean, just to piggyback on that, I mean, I'm the continuous improvement, you know, like the one, it's kind of like practicing what you preach. You know, I mean, we all know that the state of MarTech is changing, you know, daily, yearly, monthly, you know, hourly, whatever that is, right? And so if you're taking the initiative to go in and get certified in this or do this or learn this or go like, I mean, that's just, you're just, you know, showing an organization, a hiring manager that like, hey, I'm like, this isn't just what I do, like, this is what I nerd out about. Right. And that's what a lot of like MarTech people, you know, really, it's like, hey, this is fun for me. Like, this isn't necessarily a job. Like, I like learning. I like taking new courses. I went and got this. And again, it comes back to that, you know, what I had said at the beginning about, you know, somebody who has an opinion, right? And somebody who wants to be a thought leader, you know, and they're looking for people that are constantly going to be, you know, improving themselves, which means they're going to be constantly improving processes, you know, inside of the organization to help, you know, improve those efficiencies between sales and marketing.
And a question that Lori asked, I think is relatable. What's the best way to match the keywords to show on your resume that you're more of an achiever than just like a doer for those hiring managers?
Mind if I jump in here, Max?
Yeah, go for it.
So my approach to this, and this is a great question, right? Because everybody, you know, hey, if there's a really great opportunity out there, it's like, how do you separate yourself from the other, you know, if the top 10% or, you know, whatever that is. And the biggest thing that I can say is, you know, versus, I mean, matching keywords, sure, that'll get you past, you know, the initial HR, you know, box checking, like, oh, like Marketo, we need that, great. You know, oh, HubSpot, we need that, great. You know, but when you're actually in those conversations, the one thing that I always look for is people that focus on the impact, right? You know, I've been saying that, you know, everybody does something. I mean, the fact that you're employed means you do something. And so it's less about what you do, and it's more about the impact that has made on the organization, right? So it's, you know, increase this, improve this, decrease this. It's really focusing on that impact. And the biggest thing, you know, when it comes to marketing operations, demand generation, it's, you know, the revenue producing marketers. It's like these positions are almost treated, I mean, similar. I mean, they're tied so closely to sales. Any salesperson is going to know their number. They're going to know what their goal is. They're going to know what percentage to their goal is. And from a marketing, especially marketing operations and demand generation standpoint, people need to know that as well.
Yeah. Or, you know, even just to touch on like the tools piece. So if you know a company is, you know, you have a first round interview with a hiring manager, they're on Marketo, they're evaluating an ABM, they're evaluating, you know, what an analytics platform, talk about that. How long did it take you to integrate? Was it with an agency? Did you do it internal? Did you leverage, you know, external resources? And then the decrease, the increase, like what impact did that have on the business? It saved the business $100,000 by, not having to leverage X or Y.
Even renegotiate contracts. I mean, I think we'd all be surprised that, you walk into a company, it's like, wait, you're paying how much? Like, we pay half that over here.
Right.
So knowing how to negotiate contracts.
That's a good one. All right. Switching gears, Jeanette has a question. Can you talk about the impact of references? Are people still using them in the hiring process? And if so, any tips for making the most out of them?
I went first last time.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. This has notoriously just been a box check. Where, reference check. Okay, now let's input those references into our applicant tracking system. And who even knows if those references get in there? But going back to Amy's point around homework assignments, right? I think this would be a good opportunity because it's hard to get a current, boss. It's impossible. You can't, if somebody's interviewing for a role that's currently employed, they're not going to give you their current boss to communicate with. But being able to understand after that, assignment or after that interview process, maybe there's some red flags that you have, or maybe there's some things that you want to understand, and then be able to really dig in, like, what's their technical capabilities? This candidate mentioned that they're really strong with analytics. Can you speak to that? Can you give me an example of when they did that, right? I think reference checks has notoriously just been, would you hire this person? What do you think about them? Are they a great cultural fit? But I think this is a good selling point to really dig in and understand if that individual is going to be a good fit within your organization.
Yeah, my viewpoint on references is that, if you're asking somebody to give you a list of, 4 people, that you want to call to gauge, their aptitude as an employee, and then you're going to use that as a pass fail, like, you're completely missing the point, right? References, we kind of educate our clients on references are more of a, it's all about finding, we've already made the decision that this person is going to get hired, right? And now we're figuring out, how do we best work with this person? Help me understand, tell me about this. And that way it's kind of like, having spoken with somebody who's already worked with them kind of gives you some insights into, where the bodies are buried, so to speak. So, like, if an issue comes up, you understand how to communicate with that person, in an effective manner, or, how do they handle, bad things that happen, right? And so it's more about making sure that you're best equipped as a hiring manager to properly manage that person and know what to do in certain situations versus references being a, pass fail on whether or not we're going to hire this person.
Right.
And some companies don't do reference and checks at all.
Yeah.
Somebody's like, So anyways,
it's funny too, like a hiring manager, let's be honest, they're probably going to call the person, email them one. If they don't get a response, they're probably going to forget about it and move on with their day. So I think it's just, it's a company, direction. So Amy's company doesn't do reference checks. I think most companies don't really anymore. But I think it could be like Wes was saying at the end, to really understand how to work with this person. We're big DISC people, personality assessments. What makes them tick? What do they like? And then be able to, that's how you're going to manage them.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, Amy, do you mind if I pull a question? Sorry,
go for it.
Dave Kennedy asked, with so few companies hiring and promoting operations to the VP level, should marketing ops people move into more of a general role to move up the ladder? Yes, I mean that. It's because of the story and how you position yourself. I mean, like I said, if I go back to, when I, first started recruiting, director level, VP level, demand generation positions, and it also depends upon the type of organization that you're going to want to go into, right? So if this is a, Series B, right? So, past, product market fit, people, process, technology in order to scale, right? That's the, tailor-made Series B, opportunity, right? What they're looking for is somebody who that, can think strategically and also execute, tactically, right? If that's the type of position, hey, VP of marketing, head of marketing, whatever you want to call it, and you kind of came up with ops, but you also understand, strategy, campaign strategy, all the execution, ICP, go to market, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, I think kind of moving into more of that, VP, head of marketing type position, and positioning yourself from a, hey, yeah, I can develop your campaign strategy, but I can also handle the plumbing, on the back end as well. You're kind of, how do I say, you're going to be split, for the first, 3 to 6 months until, you got budget to bring on, a more doer type person. But that's we place a lot of those, head of marketing in that type of organization.
Yeah. And I think just that last piece, though, the doer, even though it's a VP, or a VP of marketing, head of marketing, I think expectations are Series A, Series B, depending on the level and product market fit, you're going to have to still, it's not just sitting back and directing and being a strategic person. It's a lot of plumbing and work as well.
The one thing I'll say on that is, especially as you start to move up in your career, having the ability to do something and having the desire to do something are very, very different. And so make sure that if you move into that type of position, we're moving into a, director, VP level position where you're going to be leading a team, yet still doing a lot of the work. A lot of times we get people that are like, okay, hey, you know what? I'm at the point in my career where I can do the work, but I'm kind of just tired of it. And so, just make sure that you find that kind of opportunity, because we run into that a lot. Very qualified people, but their desire to, kind of get into the weeds and do some of that technical stuff that they were doing, 5-6 years ago, that fire doesn't burn.
The fire burn. Yeah. It's out. It's out.
All right. We have a question from Hazel. I feel like this has been more of a topic recently when it comes to level of education for specific roles. What do recruiters think of applicants for senior or director level roles with advanced degrees such as MBA? Do we find that it's not necessary, or are they starting to become a requirement for some companies?
I've had a lot of kickoff calls in the last year, and for these types of roles, and not maybe 1-2 out of the 50, they said MBA is a requirement. I think college degree is, for a lot of companies, is kind of that baseline, like, and still there, it's not a necessary. We just have one customer that requires that. Everybody else, we don't even really talk about education. It's more skill sets. It's more skill-based, like experience-based, industry-based. So that's kind of what we've been seeing.
And I would say too, so generally, totally agree with you, Max, right? I think it also applies to the, and I'm biased because the type, my typical client is, 100 million and under-ish, right? Now that said, we did a director of ABM search for Capgemini, who's a, $20-ish billion, global, and they wanted somebody with an MBA. So I also think it depends upon the size, the level of the organization, that you're looking at. If you are, more of that startup environment, yeah. I mean, I remember, I placed somebody at a VP role whose like college degree was in philosophy, right? So it that doesn't really matter, but I think depending upon if you're looking to go more enterprise, that kind of stuff, I think it's good to have an MBA, not necessarily from a skill set, but a lot of like the people management type, strategies, that kind of stuff, leadership.
And do you still see it to be, my own question here, do you still see it to be very common to have that college degree as a requirement for a role for most of the jobs that you're hiring for?
One of my customers require a college degree out of the 30-something open roles that we have open right now. Everybody else, they're looking for good people. At the end of the day, people come from different backgrounds and scenarios, and so I don't see that being a must-have. But some have that as a must-have.
Interesting. Yeah.
I would say that we always have to, if somebody doesn't have a college education, that's definitely a talking point that we need to proactively address, right? And I think it's less about whether or not this person is smart or intelligent. And sometimes it's just, in the world of checking boxes, like sometimes just, companies want to know, like, hey, did you actually like complete something? Did you go through it start to finish, and, that kind of stuff. So, I would say it's not necessarily a hard requirement, but if somebody doesn't have a college degree, it's something that we need to like proactively address.
All right. Well, I know we are supposed to be wrapping up. So any final thoughts from Max or Wes? And to those that have attended, feel free to connect with both of these recruiters on LinkedIn. I'm sure they'll be happy to discuss any of your questions further with more detail. But Max and Wes, any last statements you have?
Yeah, thanks for having us. Hopefully we're able to add value. I think the last thing to consider, this is a hard industry to search for. And Amy, it's a small candidate pool. You hit on the head. So, if you're a hiring manager, move quick. If you're a candidate, understand what it is that you're looking for. It's going to make the process that much easier.
Yeah, and agreed. I appreciate having us on, and just the one thing that truly impresses me about the marketing ops, sales ops, rev ops community is the desire to learn and improve. A lot of type A process improvement, performance type individuals, and so there is a lot of that continuous learning. And so I can just tell you this. From when I started doing marketing automation recruitment 9 years ago to where it is today. It's just seeing the evolution and the engagement and the people. It's really cool. And I think what's even cooler is everybody on this knows that this is still tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more that I think we have to learn and to do, and I'm excited to see whatever that next evolution is. And it's all because of the people that are on this meeting taking the time to invest in themselves, or the company invest in you if your company's paying for it to come. But I think that's what's really cool about this.
Well, thanks so much to both of you. We're excited and happy that you joined us and to share your expertise. And thanks all for attending.